Subcommittee to order. I want to welcome everybody to this first meeting of this year. It should be a quick meeting. I know we have some things to do this afternoon back on the floor, so I will go ahead and get to the presentation shortly. But before you do that, we will start with introductions. And what I will do is start from my right and go to my left and start with Delegate Simons.
Good afternoon. I'm Delegate Shelley Simons, representing part of Newport News. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm Kathy Tran. I represent the 18th House District, which is parts of Southeast Fairfax County.
Delegate Rodney Willett, representing the 58th District, which is parts of Western Henrico, and the most grateful person in this room that we have our new chair for the subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon. I'm Cliff Hayes, representing the 91st District, which is Chesapeake and a portion of Portsmouth.
Good afternoon. Keith Hodges, delegate for the 68th District, which is Gloucester, Matthews, Middlesex, King and Queen, Essex, and King William counties.
Good afternoon. I'm Scott Wyatt, representing parts of Hanover County and part of New Kent County.
Now I'll go to Michael, who's everyone knows pretty well.
Michael J. I'm staff with House Appropriations, been staffing the subcommittee. This will be my 20th regular session staffing the subcommittee.
Thank you for your hard work, Michael. I will rely on you heavily this year. And then a clerk staff.
Kathy Jackson, happy to be here.
DLS staff, would you like to?
Keelan Cronin, this is my second year staffing appropriations.
Thank you, Keela. All right, so what we will do is hop right into our presentation. Today we have a presentation from the Director of VRS, Patricia S. Bishop, and if you would like to come to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee. I'm Trish Bishop. I'm the director of the Virginia Retirement System. Greatly appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. One of the things I just wanted to orient you to on the presentation slide deck, we have a pretty lengthy appendix, and I know that you have a lot to do this afternoon, so I will forego going through each of that point by point, but included within that are the VRS related bills that have been posted so far. But if there are any specific questions on those, I'm happy to cover it. Also today, I will cover just sort of an overview, talk about contribution rates, and then Michael asked me to touch upon the hybrid retirement plan. So just by way of background, VRS has a very large footprint. We have nearly 860,000 members, retirees, and beneficiaries. We're the 15th largest public or private pension plan in the U.S. and the 36th largest in the world. We have more than 375,000 active members and about 250,000 retirees and beneficiaries. It's kind of hard to believe now, but the hybrid retirement plan is now our largest active member plan with approximately 200,000 members. It makes up about half of VRS's total active population. Sometimes folks think of VRS as a state employee plan, but in fact, we cover all of the Commonwealth teachers, which is our largest plan. We also cover political subdivision employees, counties, cities, towns, other political subdivisions, as well as the state employee plan, the state police officers retirement system, the Virginia law officers retirement system, and the judicial retirement system. So as a large plan, we have a fiduciary duty to our members and beneficiaries. That duty is set out in the Constitution of Virginia, the Code of Virginia, and we also must comply with federal law and regulation. As a fiduciary, we need to focus on how we do our investments And our longstanding approach has been to maximize return within a given level of risk. It may surprise some of you to know that even though we collect contributions from our employers as well as our members, that 2/3 of benefits are funded by investment income. So we are keenly focused on investments at BRS. Again, just emphasizing the exclusive benefit rule. It is somewhat unique across public pension plans in the U.S. to actually have a constitutional provision that says that the funds within our care are to be maintained for the exclusive benefit of plan beneficiaries. And how we do that is ensuring that we have access to the broadest opportunity set possible and really focus on investment considerations with fiscal considerations in mind. So I'll just pivot now to a little bit of an update on investments in our portfolio. 2025 was a solid year for investments. We returned 9.9% net of fees for the fiscal year ending June 30th. Our long-term assumed investment rate of return, or how we discount our liabilities, is 6.75%. And so this return actually exceeded what we assume and is good news and puts downward pressure on our contribution rates. Again, there are three components really of plan funding: those employer contributions, member contributions, and investment income. And we think about this outsized return, it made a large contribution to how the rates will be calculated for this biennium. So wanted to just touch upon the fact that we do invest for the long term. Our liabilities are, we have a long-term time horizon. And so when we look at the portfolio, while the 1 year is obviously important as we do our actuarial evaluations, it's also how are we doing over the long term. And as you can see here, the fund returned in excess of our long-term assumed rate of return in the 1, 3, 5, 10, 15, and 20-year periods ending June 30th. It really demonstrates an exceptional long-term performance and a powerful track record across the short, medium, and longer-term time horizons. And it really suggests that the fund's investment process and strategy is sound and repeatable. Overall, this is good news for the sound financial health of the fund and a strong commitment to risk management. So just wanted to share a little more information about the funded status of the plan, which is a measure used to gauge plan health. And then I'll talk about the latest contribution rates, which will be going into the upcoming budget. By way of background, contribution rates are set for the biennium. We do calculate them each year to kind of give a gauge of direction and magnitude of any changes. But this was June 30th was a rate-setting year. June 30th, 2025 was a rate-setting year, which will roll into this upcoming budget. So just to orient you to this slide on the funded status for the state plan, the blue bars are historical. The green bars relate to future projections, assuming that all of our assumptions are met. As of June 30th, 2025, the state plan stood at about 85.4% funded, and this is sort of a measure of our assets available to pay benefits, and so we're kind of looking at what kind of ability will we have to pay the benefits that we promise. So this is a good news story that we are continually moving in the right direction. However, I will put a word of caution. We still have more than $4.5 billion in unfunded liabilities that remain. Most of those resulted prior to and around the great financial crisis, and those were the result of a variety of different things, including using discount rates that were different than that which was certified by the Board of Trustees, as well as plan experience over time. But I think it's important to note that this good news story is largely the result of a concerted effort by the governor and the General Assembly to ensure that contribution rates are paid as calculated by the actuary. And you've also infused a variety of different funding streams into the plans to improve plan health, and we are seeing those results. Similar story for the teacher plan. Again, at June 30th, about 85.5% funded. And just like the state plan, the teacher plan is projected to be about 90% funded by 2030. Again, there are significant liabilities that remain in the teacher plan, about $9.5 billion. So this is just another way to look at our unfunded liabilities. The different colors of the bar represent the different plans. The big portion, the green, is the teacher plan. The blue is the state plan. So while liabilities are trending in the right direction, we really do want to focus on the fact that quite a few remain, and that's where the volatility comes into our contribution rates. So again, our progress in this regard is really in part due not only to excellent investment returns over the past decade, but also using techniques like maintaining higher contribution rates than calculated that the Governor and General Assembly have done. And this slide here gives you a listing of if you're more of a table person than a picture person, this is the unfunded liabilities for all of the state plans. And again, across all of the statewide plans, you'll see about $15.1 billion in unfunded liabilities for those plans. Now, this chart is a little bit busy, but I'm often asked about how the Virginia retirement system compares to other plans nationally in terms of our plan health. And you can see that we are the yellow bar, but that green kind of squiggly bar that's across there those are the long-term assumed rates of return that are deployed by the various other state plans. And they tend to use higher discount rates than we do. So we are valuing our liabilities in a more conservative approach. So if we normalized that green line and everybody used the same discount rate, VRS would move up in the rankings even further. There are only 3 plans that have a better funded status than we do that use the same or less discount rate. So, just wanted to talk a little bit about the contribution rates that are happening. We are seeing those rates in the proposed budget. The governor's introduced budget did have the rates that the VRS actuary calculated and the board certified. So what makes up the rate? Sometimes folks sort of think it's a little bit of a mystery, and understandably so. But the blue part of this bar is the normal cost. That's the ongoing cost of the plan. How much does it cost to pay the benefits that we promise on an ongoing basis? That orange little part is your admin expense. How much does it cost for us to have our VRS employees and staff to administer the plan? The big green portion is basically your mortgage payment, paying down those unfunded liabilities. So when we think about the rate, where the volatility is and where the biggest area that we're trying to pay down over time is that green portion of the bar. So listed on the next slide are the employer contribution rates for the upcoming biennium. And you'll notice that in most cases, these have declined from the previous year. And across all of our plans, it will be about $330 million less in each year of the biennium because of the decrease in the rates. Let's see. oops, I missed one. The other post-employment benefits, I apologize, we do have a lot of acronyms in this space. They're also known as OPEB. So these are like your group life insurance, your health insurance credit, and other benefits. These are not, the contribution rates are much smaller than your pension and retirement benefits. However, these benefits are not as well funded as the retirement benefits. If you look at slide 54 in the packet, you'll see the funded status for each of the OPEB plans, but generally they're not as well funded. And so we're still trying to improve the health of those plans. So I'll move on to talk a little bit about the hybrid retirement plan and its plan design. The hybrid retirement plan came into existence after a series of pension reforms that took place not only in Virginia but across the country after the Great Recession or the Great Financial Crisis. Plans across the country were looking at ways to reduce risk as well as reduce future costs of benefits for the employer. So our hybrid retirement plan does in fact share risk more than a traditional pension plan between the employer and the employee. It does reduce employer investment and longevity risk. But it also increases portability for employees who are in that because there is a defined contribution portion of the hybrid plan. Just to step back for a minute, the hybrid retirement plan includes both a defined benefit portion, which is a pension, and a defined contribution portion. There were some recent studies of the hybrid retirement plan. The General Assembly requested the Department of Human Resource Management to lead a study to review retirement plan impacts on the Commonwealth's ability to retain and recruit government employees and teachers. That study was published and is on LIS. One of the things that was a challenge in that review was that there wasn't really a reliable data source that could demonstrate with any confidence a relationship between the adoption of the hybrid retirement plan and any effect on the ability to recruit and retain employees or teacher. So no recommendations were made regarding benefits, but there were a variety of different options that were discussed in the report. In addition, in December, the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Commission, JLARC, reported on its review of the defined contribution component of the hybrid retirement plan. And they made several recommendations in their report. Most of those related to outreach and education. However, they didn't make any recommendations regarding plan design changes necessarily. However, they did support the premise that automatic features are the most effective way to increase savings. And so over time, when VRS has been asked about ways to improve outcomes for members, we believe that automatic features can do that. For example, the hybrid retirement plan now includes an auto-escalation feature. If folks are not making the maximum voluntary contributions, every 3 years we increase them by about 0.5%. However, with the 3-year schedule, it'll take about 27 years before you would get to the maximum voluntary contribution. So our thought would be that auto-escalating people more frequently may be a way to improve outcomes. Also, automatically enrolling participants in voluntary contributions is another way to improve outcomes. Or to adjust the required member contribution. Currently, for a hybrid retirement plan member, 4% of their contribution goes into the DB portion and 1% goes into the DC portion. For a Plan 1 or Plan 2 member, you would be 5% into the DB plan. And so really, the hybrid retirement plan members are paying a greater proportion of the cost of the pension plan with their higher contribution, their 4% contribution. So this last idea would be to switch from a 4-1 to 3% of the employee's contribution going into the defined benefit plan, 2% going into the defined contribution plan. So that would allow them to actually save more. I think it's kind of important to note that in order to generate the same sort of a benefit as Plan 1 or Plan 2, hybrid retirement plan participants do have to save more. So, for example, as a Plan 1 person, I'm paying 5%, and after a 30-year career, I'm looking at about a 51% income replacement. But for a hybrid retirement plan member, if they maximize their voluntary contributions, they'd be paying 9%. Auto escalation is one of the features that's already in the hybrid retirement plan. We just completed auto escalation on January 1. For anyone who wasn't maximizing their voluntary contributions, we moved them up 0.5%. The good news is that only about 1.3% of folks opted out. So those automatic features are sticky. The folks are staying with the contributions that are moved along automatically. And nearly all participants are now making voluntary contributions as time marches on, because it's every 3 years that we have auto escalation. You'll see that amount decline. The other good news story is that we do have about a third of folks who are maximizing their voluntary contributions. The flip side of that is that 2/3 aren't. So that's the delta that we're trying to improve. This chart just sort of shows what an income replacement would look like under various scenarios. So on the left side, you've got Plan 2, and after a full career in Plan 2, you'd be about 43% of your active earnings. If you only did the minimum, you would have a 32% income replacement. However, if you did the maximum, you could actually improve your position over Plan 2. So all the way on the right is if you made a 4% contribution, you would be above a Plan 2. However, and as we've noted, it does require significantly more effort on the part of the employee in order to achieve that, because they have to save more. So there are a few programs that are often get brought up in legislation. One is returning to work. And so this is when employees who have retired, who are drawing a benefit, wish to return to active covered employment, but retain their retirement benefit. And so we have a few ways that one can do that. Currently, you can return to work if you're working 80% or less of a full-time schedule after a 1-month break in service. So this could cover a lot of folks. There are also specific critical shortage positions that are covered where the retiree may work full-time, but these positions are designated by the Department of Education and a school division, and certain criteria have to be met. And then there's also retired law enforcement officers can return to work full-time as school security officers and continue to receive their monthly benefit. And sort of why do we worry if folks are drawing their benefit and returning to work full-time? It's because they can change retirement patterns. When I mentioned earlier that 2/3 of funding is related to investment income, if folks retire earlier than we expect or draw their benefit more, we need more time in order to earn the income to pay those benefits. Also, we have to remain compliant with Internal Revenue Code, which requires that you cannot have a prearrangement, and that you also have to ensure that there is a bona fide break in service. So now the critical shortage positions, there used to be a 12-month break in service, and that has been reduced to a 6-month break. And also there's been an expansion to not only just the teachers, but support critical, specialized student support critical shortage positions have been added to the list of those who can participate. Beginning July 1 of this year, folks who are in the judicial retirement system will be moving from the hybrid retirement plan to Plan 2. So their benefits will be stacked over time. Anyone who is newly elected or appointed will be in Plan 2. So, to just sort of wrap things up, we've been really fortunate to have had 10 years of investment returns that have met or exceeded our assumed rate of return. We are grateful for the infusions that have been made into the plan, as well as additional funding. Overall, contributions are expected to remain stable, and retirement health continues to improve. And we are grateful that the legislature and the executive branch has collaboratively made progress to paying off those unfunded liabilities, and also, when resources were available, to maintain prior contribution rates and infuse more dollars into the fund. The membership in the hybrid retirement plan has grown to more than 200,000 folks. And this plan, of course, shares risk between employee and employer, and it lowers plan cost going forward. However, there may be opportunities to help improve outcomes within the hybrid retirement plan. And as the General Assembly considers retirement plan changes or other benefits enhancements, we just encourage you to remain mindful that not only about the outcomes for employers and employees, but also the impact on plan liabilities and ongoing funding requirements, so that we can ensure that we sustain those benefits for our members and beneficiaries in the long term. So that concludes my prepared remarks, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Director Bishop. We appreciate the very informative presentation. If you like, before we are going to take questions, if you would like to introduce any of your folks that are with you, anybody that's on your staff.
Sure, I'd be glad to. I have David Cotter, who's Director of our Legislative Affairs. We have Sandy Jack, Policy Planning and Compliance, and Rory Badura, who is our staff actuary. So this is the crew who does all the real hard work.
Thank you so much. And we will take questions from the subcommittee. If you'd like to speak, please use your yellow speak button, and you will be recognized. A reminder, I know all of us have some seniority, but please direct all questions and responses through the chair. So first up, I believe I see Delegate Willett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Church, I'm going to miss our one-on-one meetings, but you're in really good hands with the new chair here. So no problems there. No, I know we've talked about this before, and I cannot remember the numbers going back to the automatic enrollment suggestion. Other states that do that, I'm just curious what the national picture is with that.
Sure, Mr. Chair. The automatic, and there aren't that many plans that are hybrid retirement plans across the country, but many do auto enrollment, and for example, the state of Georgia does for its public employees. They actually auto-enroll at the maximum. I can follow up with which states exactly how many do. So it does vary, and a lot of the plan designs vary from state to state. So some may or may not be Social Security states and those kinds of changes, but we'll follow up on that one.
Thank you. Delegate Simons.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question about the change in cost allocation slide. It was going from DB to DC, and I wasn't sure if there was a recommendation to change the match for the employer and the contribution for the employee. I don't know if you can go back to that slide.
Sure, Mr. Chair. I think it's slide 28, I think. Well, maybe not. Sorry, I'll find
The
it.
JLARC recommendation, or maybe discussed by JLARC. This,
Oh, here, that one. Yep, sorry.
24.
yeah.
24, I apologize. So the change in the allocation relates to the member contribution. So as a member of the retirement system, you have a required 5% contribution if you're Plan 1, Plan 2, or the hybrid. For Plan 1 and Plan 2, it only goes into a defined benefit because there is no defined contribution portion. For hybrid retirement plan members, 4% goes into the defined benefit portion and 1% goes into a mandatory defined contribution plan. So the idea with this particular option, and it was discussed in the JLARC report as well, it wasn't a recommendation, but it was an option that they discussed, is because the defined benefit plan is sort of skinnied down from Plan 1 and Plan 2 for hybrid retirement plan participants, they're paying a higher portion of the benefit than their Plan 1 and Plan 2 peers. So to kind of level set, make that they would pay 3% into the defined benefit portion, and then they would have 2% that would go into their defined contribution. And so that would allow them to save more in that defined contribution component of the plan, and so without changing their level of effort. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Delegate Simons.
Yeah, I guess follow-up would be, have there been any bill proposals, or was there any action taken from that JLARC suggestion?
Mr. Chair, we have not seen any legislation on this. There had been legislation quite a long time ago. I think it was when maybe Delegate Jones was chair of appropriations, so it's been a while where some of these proposals were considered. I think those particular proposals over time, either they were overcome by other resource requirements where the General Assembly spent money, or sometimes whether it was salary was what was chosen over the retirement benefit.
Thank you. Delegate Hodges.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The success of the hybrid program has been, phenomenal in the short time that it's been here, now being the largest plan. I'm trying to think back. When did we put that into place? Michael J. would probably know that.
Just 2012 was the legislation, and then it took, 14 was when it became effective.
Thank you.
I believe that is the end of our questions. Madam Director, you have any last statements for the committee?
No, we appreciate the opportunity to work with the subcommittee. We are always happy to assist with questions. Lots of times, constituents may have questions about their benefits. We're always happy to help. Or if you have any questions, I know you have very talented staff and experienced staff in Michael, so but we are always happy to help if you have any questions regarding legislation or about the plans that we administer.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your presentation today.
Thank you.
And before we adjourn, just a quick administration note. I know the initial handout said we were going to meet at 8 a.m. It's at 9 a.m., excuse me. But we're more than likely going to meet around this time in the afternoon, more than likely after Chairman Hayes' committee. But just keep an eye out on the calendar. And if there are any conflicts or anything, we can discuss those. But to that, without any objection, this committee shall rise. Thank you.